all ages from 0 to 2000. And we have the magnificent Michael Kerrins with us this evening. Next Friday, I'm going not because I'm performing myself at Cambridge Folk Festival at the moment, so I'm going to disappear. But next Friday, I'm going to announce that now is the amazing Babasi at this time. Meanwhile, Michael, over to you.
Thank you, John. Enjoy Cambridge. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
So I was just welcoming some pals of mine, including my blood relatives from near Frankfurt in Germany. Christina Welkomen and my nephew James and her mother's hand, apparently. Anyway, welcome everybody from across the world, from France, from Mexico, from the United States. Before I start the stories, I want to ask a riddle. And this is the riddle. What gets wetter the more it's drying? Think about that. Think about that, and I'll tell you a story. The story I've got, first of all, to tell you is about a man who was a lover of dragons. And this is one of the ancient stories of China. It's something to think about. It's credited to Yu Wenye, and it goes like this. Once there was a lord who lived in a great castle. The castle had towers and turrets. It had a drawbridge front and back. It had, in the ballroom, 3 massive windows. And in every possible place there could be any decoration, he put dragons. And the dragons were roaring. They were sublime. They were tired. They were playing games. They were frolicking. They were near volcanoes. He just loved dragons. And when his baby son was born, he put a little dragon shaped crib for the baby to lie in. And of course, the bed linens, well, they were silk, really. The bed silks for a prince in China would have all this beautiful embroidered dragons on the covers, on the sheets, on the coverlets, on the pillowcase. And he just loved dragons. And then there was such a talk about this that word got up to heaven. And the dragon, the real dragon that lives up there in heaven, thought, what's all this about? How many dragons? And we're getting into the tens of thousands, maybe 30-odd thousand of these dragons, or wee tiny ones, door handles, gilding round mirrors, shaped like dragons. So this giant dragon from heaven came down to earth to have a look at this and landed in China at this very grand castle with the 3 big windows in the ballroom with turrets and castellations. And the dragon was enormous and fierce and couldn't get its head in the drawbridge because the head was bigger than the front door of the castle. So it stood right over the wall, smashed through the big 3 windows at the ballroom, stuck his head right in there and said, what's all this about loving dragons? And the big tail came round this way and that way and blocked the back door. And the prince, who loved dragons and told everybody how much he loved dragons, was terrified of such a monster. And just there, from the dragon's nostrils, came little breaths of smoke. Puffs, puffs, puffs of smoke. And he was terrified. And he ran to the front door and it was blocked by a claw. He ran to the back door and it was blocked by a tail. And then he went to the side door, grabbed his baby boy, put him in a papoose, grabbed his wife, and they ran away. And they never went back to that castle. And that just shows you that the man didn't really love dragons. He just loved the idea of dragons. And that's a story from China that's even older than Babasi's 2 jokes, even older than both of his jokes. Now, what was I asking you there about the riddles? Who remembers the riddle?
What gets wetter the more it dries?
This question's actually aimed at children. But thank you for that marvelous point. What gets wetter? Is that what you were going to say, Christina? What gets wetter the more it's drying? Florine,
I think I know the answer.
tell me.
Isn't it a sponge?
Nope. But that's a good idea. Anybody?
The soil.
A good idea.
My appetite.
A rubbish idea. A towel. The more you dry with a towel, the wetter the towel gets and the more dry you become.
I knew that. I love it. I love hearing that.
Right. Second riddle. What has 17 eyes? Although a giant one, apparently in the Guinness Book of Records, had 27 eyes, but cannot see. It's completely blind. What has at least 7 eyes? It can have 27 eyes, but it can't see.
The potato.
They're not for you. They're not for you, Baba. A potato. He's so wise. So my next story is called It's Okay. It's Good. And this comes from Richard Hamilton's book, The Last Storytellers. I met Richard in Morocco. I heard him talking about, in 2014 on the BBC, speaking about the last storytellers in Marrakesh. 2012 or 2014, something of the kind. And I was so intrigued by what he was saying about the last storytellers in Marrakesh that I said to my wife, we need to go there. And we went there and we saw these storytellers in the big square where Baba C and I performed last year. Now, here's the thing. Imagine your personality was something that just happened, that everything was good. It's good. Well, once there was a prime minister who worked very hard for a king, and whatever happened, the guy said, it's good. Terrible things happened. Floods happened. It's good. How can it be good if a flood happens? Said the king. Well, the flood will subside and the soil there will be very fertile. And so long as there's not too much damage, that's okay. It's good. And this was good and that was good. And falling out with people was good because it meant that when their friends came back, they would be much stronger and much happier together. It's good. And that became his nickname. And every time he was walking in the street, people would shout behind him, it's good. But then they got to say it not just behind him, but dead into him, it's good. And when they saw him coming, they would shout, it's good. And they would point and they would laugh. But he was a very serious politician. And he went to see the king about the exchequer. He went to see them about fairness because he was the prime minister. He had to speak about new laws. He had to speak about land rights. He had to speak about all kinds of things. And he went to see the king, who just had a heavy crown on his head. And he was in his garden doing some, well, he had gardeners, of course, but he quite liked gardening. And he had a big sharp knife. And he was working there at some bamboo or some of these very tough grasses when suddenly the knife shifted and cut off his thumb. And the king was scandalized by this. Blood was everywhere. The thumb fell on the ground. There was no plastic surgeons in these days. And the prime minister, whose nickname was "It's Good," said, "It's good." Well, everybody was shocked at this. The king was bleeding. He became dizzy. He had to sit down. He was bandaged. The blood came through the bandage. The white bandage was blood red. He had to hold his hand up. He became very pale. They had to get a bed to carry him back to the palace. And all the while, the prime minister was walking ahead saying, "Oh, the king has cut off his thumb. It's good. It's good." When they got there, the king was given some water to drink, some grapes and some dates to eat. And the sugar in the grapes and the dates started to give him a little lift. And he was okay, apart from the missing thumb. This was his hands like this. And he was furious with the prime minister. And he said to the prime minister, "You, jail. Get to jail." Well, that's really, it's good. I'm going to jail. Yeah, that's good. The king thought, he's off his head. Maybe he's a good prime minister, but maybe he's also a mental case. If you can imagine such a thing as a mental case politician, we can. Can you do it in your country? Because we can do it here. "It's good," said the prime minister as he went into prison. They put the key in the lock. "It's good. I'm glad the key fits in the lock." They shut the gates. "It's good. I'm glad the lock works." And they brought him stale bread. They brought him some kind of warm water. It wasn't cool or refreshing at all. It was slightly stale. And he got this lovely meal. And he said, "It's good. I got this bread that won't go to waste. I've got this water that won't go to waste. It's good. I like it here." The king didn't have a prime minister, and the land was a bit in chaos. It was a bit chaotic. It was a bit away to the one side. There was too many political things going on. His head was bursting. And he said, "I'm going to go on a journey." And off he went on the journey. And he took his crown with him. He took his favourite horse with him. And he started, he thought, "I'm going to go somewhere I've never been before." And he turned the horse round and he went to the docks. And there was the royal yacht. And he said to the captain, "I'm taking myself and this horse on a journey. And I don't know where we're going. I want you just to sail away. I'm taking this crown off and I'm going to rest from the affairs of state." That's fine. So they went there. And he lay in the bed. His hand was healed now. There was a huge scar. And he's got his 9 fingers. And he's scratching his head with these 9 fingers, thinking, it's pretty good when you don't have a crown to weigh you down. You don't have people arguing about land rights and money and this and that. And some people argue about this and that, as well as arguing about this or that. And he was just so relieved. He took off his golden slippers and he lay in the bed. Now, they had never had a horse on the ship before. This yacht had never had a horse as a passenger, but off they went. And they went over the horizon and they sailed far away. 5 days they sailed, which means they sailed for 5 nights. And on the 6th day they sailed, and the 6th night. And on the 7th day, or as the king would say, not this, but this. On the 7th day, they came to this land. And the king said, leave my golden crown here. I want to go as close as we can, get my horse safely down into the water where it's not too deep. And the horse and me are going to go exploring. And off they went. The horse was lowered down into a boat, and some sailors rode the king and the horse to this strange land where no one had ever been. Remember, it's 7 days sailing. And nobody had ever been there before. Well, not from that kingdom anyway. Anyway, when they got there, he got on the horse and he felt great on the horse. There was no heavy crown of state on his head, nothing like this. So this is marvelous. And he just started riding on the beach. And then he got off the horse and started to walk, holding the horse. The horse was tired. And he walked the horse over to a little stream where the horse could drink some fresh water up a bit beyond the high water mark, where it wasn't brackish. It was fresh and cool, and it was lovely. And he slurped, and he licked, and he loved it. And he loved the king. But he was so busy drinking that he didn't see these strangers coming. And the people came and they threw the king into a bag and wrapped him up and took him away. Now, in that land, the land that nobody had been to, as I tell you, it's 7 days sailing from where the king lived. In that land, well, it's a place where they don't like strangers and they eat them. And the king had to go and say, what's going on here? What's going on? And he spoke in the language that sounded like this. And the people heard this and said, what's he talking about? Does he not know that we eat strangers? And they agreed among themselves that he did not know. But before he could be eaten, the stranger would have to be washed and presented as a sacrifice and made sure that he was whole. So he was stripped and washed and dried and put in a kind of little silken cloth. It was just really an envelope with a hole for his head. They don't spend too much time on fashion for a meal. And the high priest was brought there to inspect the sacrifice. And when he saw the missing thumb, oh, he said, no, 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 rejects any imperfections. We do not, he said to his own people, we do not sacrifice anything to the gods that's in any way flawed. We can't be doing with this. The end of it. And he was taken back to the horse that they had never seen before. And he was taken out of the bag, put back on the horse, and he rode very quickly back to where the rowing boat had dropped him off. And he scampered. And it's difficult to do on a horse. He scampered with the horse right into the boat, right into the boat, right into the boat. And they went home to the boat. And at the boat, the sailors were all ready and they pulled up the horse and they pulled up the king. Oh, he said, that's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I think, he said, it's difficult to measure with this hand. I was this much away from being eaten. Not this much, but this much away from, and I don't know it. I can't swear to it, but I am this much away from being eaten. Let's go home. And for 7 days and 7 nights, they sailed back home. And he put on his crown of state, and he had learned some lessons that not everybody's the same. Not everybody speaks the same language. Not everybody has the same opinions on things. But they were shocked on that island that he had 9 fingers. And when he went home back to the palace, he said, I should go to the dungeon and see my prime minister. Because they had been they were still great friends, but he had really annoyed the king with all this "it's good" shouting, got on his nerves when such a tragedy had happened. So he went to see him, and there in the dungeon, with his fine robes on and his crown on his head and golden slippers on his feet, and 5 rings on 4 fingers, waste not, want not, 5 rings on 4 fingers. He spoke to the prime minister and he said everything that had to be said. And the prime minister said, it's good. How can it be good? I was nearly eaten. He said, yes, prime minister. And he said, you know, it was quite good. The king said to the prime minister, it was quite good. In fact, it was very good that I was damaged. Because had I not been damaged, they would have eaten me. Had I 10 fingers, they would have eaten me. Oh, yes, they would have, Majesty. I'm certain of that. They most definitely would have eaten you. But it meant you couldn't go with me because I was so angry. It's good, said the Prime Minister. Why is this good? Asked the king. He said, well, if I had gone with you, they would have eaten me as easily as you can count to 10. They would have eaten me as quickly as possible, for I have 10 fingers and I am perfect. So there's a version of that story in The Last Storytellers by Richard Hamilton, a book I came across before it was written, when Richard started collecting the stories for BBC from our own correspondent. But I've got maybe about 8 of these books now. I've given them to different friends and so on. It's good. So what was I asking you? Was I asking you any more riddles? Who can remember? Anybody apart from Baba C, because this is meant for guests. Who remembers? Oh, no, you guessed it. Okay. For everybody except Baba C, you're in Washington. Here's a question. What can you never eat for your breakfast? And it doesn't matter if you are in Mexico, in Russia, where Elena is, in New York, where Christina is. Oh, 2 Christinas here. Oh, no, she's Christiane. Where Christina is in Germany, where Baba C is in America, where Peter is in kind of near Massachusetts, Baltimore, kind of away, where Florine is in France, and when the World Storytelling Cafe is in Morocco. What can you never eat for your breakfast? And I'll tell you now. You want to ask her now? Florine?
Last night's dinner.
Florine.
Last night's dinner.
Lunch?
Last night's dinner. That's the answer. Lunch or dinner, you can never eat for breakfast.
Yay! You can in Washington, D.C.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Politicians do all kinds of weird things.
Yeah. Including get half the people to vote for them.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, well,
But that last story you told, it's good.
it's
It's good.
we've just got you know, this, they say that this is the year of the global election. The French have just had them, and we've just had them. The Russians have had them. I'm not sure about Mexico. Yeah, Mexico had it, and the whole of Europe had it. So everybody on here has been involved in some kind of elections or other. I'm looking to see my next story. Oh. I got this story from Margaret MacDonald Reed, and it's called The King's Horse. Once there was I think I told this story at the big event in Marrakesh, where all the storytellers did this big marathon. Baba C and me and about 80 or 90 people did this. a newspaper? I don't know what the answer, what you're saying there, Baba. I'm not reading these things really.
Someone asked what's black and white and red all over.
A nun,
That's a
who,
joke.
a nun
That's
who's been stabbed.
Oh, that's horrible.
That's what she said.
Ah, that's horrible. I stick with my answer. A
Okay.
newspaper.
Right. The King's Horse. Once there was a man who had a horrible job in the palace. It was a smelly job where his job was to close his nose and go in and clean out the latrines for the humans and the stables and the piggery from the animals. And it was just the worst job. And he was dirty and he was smelly. But he was smart. And he said, you know, I think I'm going to teach the King's Horse to talk. Well, of course, he's not in a position to talk to the king because the king is about 7 levels above him in the palace. And ordinary people like him cannot talk to princes. So he said, well, I'll just let it be known that I think I'm going to teach the King's Horse to talk. And everybody in the palace said, well, can you do that? But he just said it to his boss above him. And the boss above him said it to the next one. And the boss above him said it to the next one. And soon it was above ground level. It was near the chamberlains. And once it got to the chamberlains, it went to butlers and staff like that who were mixing between servants and servitude and masters who got things done for them. The people who never clean their own shoes, the people who never peel their own potatoes, the people who have food served to them on plates. Some guy in the dungeons and in the toilets can teach the King's Horse to talk. He should be brought here. Well, that was easier said than done because he was filthy. He was smelly. He was dirty. He was beyond these things. He was just so dirty. So then he said, well, I think we should clean this guy up and get him upstairs. And he was washed and dried a couple of times, and he was immersed in shampoo and soap, and he was given kind of fresh clothes, and they were taken off him, and he was given fresh clothes, everything from his underwear out, and he was taken up into the top levels of the palace to level 6. And there in front of ambassadors and plenipotentiaries and messengers from foreign lands, he was asked, are you going to teach the King's Horse to talk? And he said, yes, sure, I'll try. So he was put before the king. And the king sat on this great throne. And they said, why are you here? And he said, well, I'm here to teach I'm going to try and teach the King's Horse to talk. The king, I am the king, said the king. You're going to teach my horse to talk. And he said, well, yes, Your Majesty, it's not as easy as that. There are conditions. The king was furious. Conditions? You are giving me conditions. How dare you? Well, he said, it's as simple as this, Your Majesty. I'm not giving you anything. I was brought here to try and teach the King's Horse to talk. I was invited here and washed and scrubbed up and presented here to do this. And I don't make the conditions. I'm just saying there are conditions. And there are 3 of them. 3 conditions, said the king, stamping his feet, pounding the chair with his fist. Yes, Your Majesty. Well, what are these conditions? Before I agree to anything. Well, Majesty, the first condition is that you should pick the horse. Why? said the king. Well, your majesty, you see, if I pick the horse, if I do it, then people will think there's jiggery pokery. They'll think there's collusion. They'll think something's going on here. That's what they'll think. Okay, I understand that. And you should pay money. Pay money, said the king. Why should I pay money? And the man said, Majesty, do you mind if I look out of the north window? And he looked out of the north window. The king agreed, and off he went to look out of the north window. And there, out of the north window, he looked. And he said, Majesty, over there to the lands in the north, that's your brother, cousin king, Norman, who's the king there. Yeah. He's a kinsman of yours, yes. My mother and his mother were full sisters. Okay. Does he have a talking horse, your majesty? No, he does not. And Simon in the south, can I look out the window there? And she looked. Does he have a talking horse? No. And then the east and the west, with Edgar and Wildebrand. Do Edgar or Wildebrand, the lands of the islands and the sea? Does Edgar in the east, does he have a talking horse, or Wildebrand in the west, where there are great fields of wheat and luscious growing apples on the trees? Does Wildebrand of the west, does he have a talking horse? No, said the king. Well, your majesty, this is the thing. That's it. And so you should pay for this. And the third thing is, it takes a long time. Okay, said the king. How long? He said, the 9 years. 9 years? 9 years? He didn't finish the sentence. And the man said, Majesty, may I look to the north? Enough already. So they got organised and off they went down to the stables, and they picked a fine, fine horse. My goodness, she was beautiful. A mare, 7 years old. Perfect. A really beautiful horse. Strong, sturdy. And the guy who cleaned the toilet said to the king, Your Majesty, I think it's obvious that you know a lot about horses. This is a fine steed that you've chosen. And he put his hand out, and he was given 1 golden coin. Oh. And it's a Thursday. And I'll come back next Thursday, and I'll give you an update. And this will take a long time. This will take 9 years. But with this horse and this commitment, I am certain that we will get, we'll do it. And off he went. But he didn't go home. On this horse, in these new clothes, with a gold coin in his pocket, he rode out of the palace and down towards the town. But he didn't go to the smelly place where he lived with his wife. He went into the town, properly into the shops where the merchants were. And he bought a red velvet doublet. He bought brown leather pants. He bought beautiful big black boots that came up beyond his knee. And when he was decked out like this, he looked like a movie star, if there had been movie stars back then. And then he got a hat with it was a red velvet hat, the same colour of his doublet. It was red and it had a wide brim. And then, to make this hat just so, he got a white feather that was wider than the screen. And he put this hat. And when he saw that feather in the hat, yee-haw! He said, yee-haw, yee-haw, yee-haw. Whoa, this is a feather for Eddie's story. Whoa. And in his fine clothes, for now they were fine, and he had money in his pocket, and he had a hat and a feather that said, yee-haw, on his head. He rode home. away from the shops, up to the crossroads and over the little bridge to where the smelly and poor people lived. And there he called to his wife, "Wife, wife, come and see what great fortune has befallen me. Come and see, let it be thus, what great fortune has befallen us." And the wife came out, and she looked this way, no husband, this way, no husband. And she said, "Husband, husband, I hear your voice." And he said, "I'm up here." And she looked up and saw her husband, but dressed like a gentleman, in leather and velvet, with a big hat and a feather that said, "Yee-haw!" He jumped down and he tied up the horse. And she said, "Husband, what's happened? Have you been bewitched by a devil? Are you in league with black hearts? What's going on?" And he said, "I have a job at the palace." And she said, "I know this. You had this job before we were married. The smell drives me crazy, but husband, husband, I love you." And they went into the house. Well, it was really a hovel. Actually, it's the kind of place that gives hovel a bad name. It was yeah, well, you know what it was. And in the hovel of hovels, they gave hovels a bad name. Well, there, he said to his wife, "I've got a job. I'm now a part of the court. I'll go and see the king every week. I have a job to teach that horse is the king's horse, and I'm going to teach the horse to talk. And we have this job for 9 years." And the wife said the words very, very slowly. "Teach the horse to talk? Majesty, can you teach horses to talk?" And he said, "I'm not Majesty, I'm your husband. It's the king's majestic job, and this is the king's horse." "Husband, it's the black arts. Can you teach horses to talk?" "Stupid woman. Of course I can't teach horses to talk. Nobody can teach horses to talk. Nobody." And what happens after 9 years? 9 years, she said. 9 years. Pah! Anything can happen in 9 years. If truth be told, the king could die. I could die. But let me tell you, if the king doesn't die, and I don't die, that horse surely will.
I have a riddle for you. That's a great story. All right. Why is it good to have horses live near you?
Is it something to do with neighbors?
Yes, they make good neighbors.
Marvelous. Marvelous. So I want to show you this birthday card. So some years ago, where is Elena? Elena, hi. Some years ago, Elena lives in Russia, and I was in a school for orphan children there at Love's Bridge, and it was a little boy's birthday. And we started to send them birthday cards. But because of the situation now, that's not so easy, but we're still going to do the project by sending birthday cards to children abroad, orphan children or very poor children. And these ones are in Uzbekistan. So this is the flag of Uzbekistan, and this is the flag of Scotland. And this, if you can read it, it says, "To the children of Uzbekistan, with love from Scotland." So what the children do is they get this template. It's just a piece of A4 card. Here, they put some drawing. This one is balloons and so on. And in there, they write a little piece of themselves, kind of anonymous, so the child is not exposed. "Hi, I am Anna. I love my family, dancing and friends." And then up here, it says 2, that's left happy birthday for the teachers and so on to write in the name. "Happy birthday. We hope you have an amazing day from Ava and we Tom." And there, in the Uzbek language, is happy birthday. Happy birthday in Uzbek language. So we've got about 150 of these that we're going to send out to Uzbekistan. Well, I'm going to Kazakhstan in October or November, and I'm going to take these with me and then get them to Uzbekistan from there. And the reason this story came about is because the stories I write about Wee Tom, lots of you know Wee Tom, he used to get 5,000 birthday cards a year. And I got the project changed so that the children, instead of the cards coming to me from Wee Tom, they would go to children that we don't know, these orphan children. And the card comes from Wee Tom. And this is the story of Wee Tom's birthday. Once upon a time, there was a wee boy with 5 names: Thomas, Patrick, James, O'Neill, Thumb. And he's just the height of a thumb, like Tom Thumb. In Russia, they call him Malchik Spalchik. In France, they call him Tom Pouce. In Spanish, I don't remember. Policino.
Pulgarcito.
Policacito, okay? He exists in culture all over the world. But here in Scotland, he's called Wee Tom, and he is wee. He's the height of a thumb. And he lives with a big uncle who is like me, massive, and strong, and handsome, with a moustache that turns up. And his uncle loves him, and his uncle's name is Uncle Dan. And Uncle Dan decided this day that he would play a trick on Wee Tom. He would pretend when it was going to be Wee Tom's birthday that he would not get involved. Every time Wee Tom would mention the birthday, Uncle Dan would change the subject. Wee Tom said, "I would like the theme for my birthday to be cowboys and the Wild West. Yee-haw!" And his uncle said, "Have you seen my car keys? Have you seen my cell phone and my mobile phone? I'm looking for the newspaper. I'm talking about my birthday, Uncle Dan." "Oh, there's the car keys." And every time he mentioned birthday, Uncle Dan changed the subject. But what Wee Tom didn't know was that when he was in bed at night, Uncle Dan started to draw a birthday card just like this. And here he drew some rocks and cactus and a horse. And on the horse was a handsome, handsome cowboy with a moustache and a word sheriff there on his chest like this, sheriff. And he needed a shave, and his hat was not going to fall off his body, but fall off his head because there was a little leather string holding it on. The cowboy was called Wyatt Twerp, and the horse was called Tricker because he could do tricks. And Uncle Dan made this card with love and attention to detail. And then it happened that the card was ready. So Uncle Dan took it and put it above the fish tank. Now, in another story, the fish tank got put up very high because the story is called Wee Tom in Deep Water. Enough of that for the moment. And that meant that when Wee Tom came walking into the room, he couldn't see what was on top of the fish tank. It just looked like the lid of the fish tank and the card. You couldn't see anything of this. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Uncle Dan got up, went downstairs in his pajamas in Scotland in February with a big jacket over his pajamas with Wellington boots on his feet. He stood from the porch house onto the grass, not on the gravel, going crunch, 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 a big step like this, and walked down on the grass, not making a sound, opened the garden gate that he had oiled and looked this way and that way. And when he heard the whistling of the postman, he said to them, "Uncle Dan," shh. It was Archie, the postman. He said, Archie, it's going to be wee Tom's birthday soon, and you know he gets lots of cards. He gets 5,000 cards every year from all over the world. I'm going to pretend it's not his birthday. I'm going to play a trick on him. Are you in? And Archie never said yes or no. Archie only did this and winked. He was part of the plan, and the plan was set. Archie would hide the cards until the day of the birthday and then give them all to Uncle Dan early in the morning. Wee Tom couldn't understand why nobody, his mum, his dad, his granny, nobody would take him up on this. That's strange. Peculiar even. But that's okay. My birthday's coming and we'll talk about it then. On the day of the birthday, at 8 o'clock in the morning, wee Tom's alarm started to ring. Hooray, it's my birthday. He always wears red, red and white things, red and white pajamas, red everything, red socks, red all kinds of things. Even if you look at my trousers today, you'll see that my trousers are red because I'm telling wee Tom stories. And sure enough, that's what happened. Wee Tom ran downstairs. Well, he went downstairs on a tray, like this, like sledging without snow. And he shouted, cushion, cushion, cushion. And Uncle Dan was upstairs in his bed, and he had to take a pillow and throw it in a perfect parabolic arc. And it landed right in front of wee Tom. Wee Tom crashed into the cushion. And not for the first time, or the second time, or maybe even the 100th time, Uncle Dan had saved wee Tom from being injured. Uncle Dan started to come downstairs, and wee Tom ran to the front door. Now, in my country, it doesn't happen in a lot of countries, but in my country, the postman brings the mail right to inside your house through a hole in the door called a letterbox. And in went the mail, and it was lying on the ground. And wee Tom picked it up. And there were 4 or 5 or 5 or 6 or 6 or 7 items of mail. But none of them belonged to wee Tom. They were just ordinary things. Something from the Reader's Digest, your chance to win money, something about blood transfusions, something about car insurance, some travel brochures to go to Washington or Mexico, wherever you fancy. There's lovely people there. Not all of them, so be careful, but there's lovely people there. And with these brochures and stuff and everything, Uncle Dan went into the kitchen where the fish tank was with his card and the big bundles of cards that he got from Archie that he had hidden there while wee Tom was sleeping. I'm just going to make some boiled eggs. Would you like the top of 3 eggs? Uncle Dan said to wee Tom. Nobody said happy birthday. Uncle Dan's sister didn't say happy birthday. That's wee Tom's mum. Uncle Dan's brother-in-law didn't say happy birthday. That's wee Tom's dad. Uncle Dan's granny didn't say nobody said happy birthday. And wee Tom started to cry. Somebody's stolen my birthday. My birthday has been stolen. It's terrible. My birthday has been stolen. This is awful. This is awful. This is awful. And then he started to cry. And Uncle Dan thought, this isn't a joke. This was a practical joke, but now this is a punishment for the child. Uncle Dan loves wee Tom. He said, darling boy, of course it's your birthday. Brought him up, gave him a kiss, gave him a hug, gave him his punches for his birthday, and said, here, of course. And he lifted down the bundles of cards from Archie the postman. And Archie's cards were wrapped in these rubber bands, and they pinged this way and that way. And there were cards from everywhere. I mean, you think of a country like Abyssinia, there was a card from there. You think of a country like Zanzibar, there was a card from there. You think about a country from, you just name it. There were cards from all over the world. And wee Tom went through, there was a card from, several cards from Hollywood, from the previous story where wee Tom got to present an Oscar. There was cards from Buckingham Palace. There might have been a card from the White House. some years ago, but then we Tom fell out of favour. I can't remember about all that, but let's not get involved. There's children here. Anyway, cards from everywhere. And then Tom said to his Uncle Dan, he had his hands on his hips like this, I know why you were pretending it wasn't my birthday, because there's no card from you. Well, of course there's a card from me. Uncle Dan said, it wasn't in the clips. It wasn't wrapped up in the rubber bands. There was no card there. Oh, shocking, shocking, shocking. Here's your card. And Tom looked at that card and he saw that horse and he said, very silently, a whisper to himself, I wish I could horse ride. And just at that was said at the very moment Tom came out of his mum's tum. And the horse jumped out of the card and rode up on the table where Tom was standing and spoke to him. And Uncle Dan is such a good artist that that horse spoke with an American accent. Well, howdy, partner. Would you like to learn to horse ride? I can't horse ride, said Tom, deeply Scottish. Well, partner, I'll surely show you. I'll give you all the learning you ever did need. A talking horse, said Tom. You are an actual talking horse. Yep. Who's going to teach me? Well, he's from South Carolina. Of course it's going to be Southern. It's going to be a Southern accent. Ain't it the truth, he said. Ain't it just the truth, Baba, see? So he said, that's it. Up you go. And he started to climb onto the horse. Now, Wyatt Twerp, the cowboy who was there, had to come off. And he started talking to Uncle Dan. And as he was talking to Uncle Dan was moving things on the table, silverware that we call cutlery, cups and saucers, little cubes of sugar, and he made an obstacle course there. And the horse started to run, jump over them and jump over them. And Tom was like this. This is marvellous. And as he said, marvellous, and the horse said, boring. This is boring. This is marvellous boring. This is marvellous boring. I can't understand it. It's dull, said the horse. Well, that was the end of that. I can't cope with this. You need to just do some adventure here. This is clip, 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 jump, clip, 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 jump. I want speed. I want danger. I want excitement. I want running wild. Uncle Dan lifted the horse and Tom together onto the floor. And very quickly, he built an obstacle course for them there, not with sugar cubes and teaspoons, but with books, a camera, a big husk of rope, CD boxes, and Lego bricks built up quite high wall. And then he built a tray of water. And then he built some kitchen implements for grating vegetables. Jaggy side up like this. That was quite scary. And the horse inspected them all. And then Uncle Dan opened the living room door. They were in the kitchen, but he opened the living room door and it was still dark in there. And behind the sofa, there was a little triangle of light, just like this. And he looked right in there. There was light at the other side, but it was dark in that room. The curtains hadn't been opened. And then, underneath the television, there was a whole crisscrossing kerfuffle of wires. And the horse looked at these. And then under the coffee table, it was very low set. And then they went back to the front door. And the horse said, now this is an obstacle course. There's jumping, there's water, there's electrical cables, there's darkness. Let's put some speed in it. Let's go for a race. And we'll do this and we'll get better and better and better and better until we reach our very best personal best. And here I'm telling you this on the very minutes that the Olympics are opening in Paris, our neighbours, our Old Alliance pals against against folk we don't like too much. Well, anyway, the horse clipped its heels against the front door and started riding faster and faster and faster and faster, and jumped over the Lego, jumped over the camera, jumped over the hank of rope, jumped over this, that, zigzag, zigzag, over the tray of water. It was very narrow, it was very wide, and it was very broad. So it was a big leap that was required. And then into the living room, got wider and wider and out the other side. When it came to the cables under the television, I tell you this, there's never been, even at the Bolshoi Ballet in Moscow, such graceful elegance of pointing and pirouetting and going through these wires, this way and that way, this way and that. Aristova and I have been to the ballet many times, and they go this way and that way, this way and that way. And then, under the coffee table, in the darkness, we tom down really low, and then back. And then Uncle Dan stopped the clock and he wrote with his pen 19 minutes and 52 seconds. There you go. Impressive. Do you think you can beat it? And I tell you this, boys and girls, and big hairy boys and girls, the more you practice anything, and that's anything, the better you will get at it. And bit by bit, it came down from 19 minutes and 44 seconds to 17 minutes and 44 seconds to 15 minutes and 12 seconds to 10 minutes and 10 seconds. And the times got better and better. And the more you practice anything, handwriting, picking up litter, being kind to people, the better you will get at it. Whatever you practice, you'll get better at it. Until they came to their personal best. 8 minutes and 8 seconds. They started at 1952. They came down to 8 minutes and 8 seconds. And it could not be improved upon. That was it. And it was marvelous. And wee Tom said, this is the best birthday that anybody has ever. I don't have words for this, Uncle Dan. And wee Tom stopped talking. And as the horse came, the horse was no longer able to walk. Okay, just be clear about this. The horse could only trudge, and it was exhausted. And the horse came trudging back to Uncle Dan and got lifted up onto the cart. And the cowboy, Wyatt Twerp, who had been speaking to Uncle Dan this whole time and only stopped the conversations while Uncle Dan kept the time on the obstacle course. Right, wee Tom, off you come. Wee Tom did not do what he was told. Off, let's go. Twice. 3 times. 5 is wee Tom's favourite number. He has 5 names. Thomas, Patrick, James, O'Neill, Thumb. 5 times he was told that. And 5 times he didn't come off. And the cowboy came onto the horse. And wee Tom got squished up. And the horse climbed back into the card, into that beautiful card, just like this. And the magic stopped. Panic, 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 get me out of here, get me out of this card, I can't move. Uncle Dan saw wee Tom in the front of the card, but when he opened the card, there was no wee Tom. Wee Tom, no wee Tom. Wee Tom, no wee Tom. Uncle Dan, get me out of this card, please. Oh, help me. I'll always do what I'm told. From now on, I will always do what I'm told. And Uncle Dan got a very, 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 5 berries, very, very sharp knife and skillfully across wee Tom's hip, down the big long femur, round the kneecap, down the outside of his leg, And wee Tom was quivering. Oh, I'm in a panic. I'm in a panic. Don't cut off my leg. Don't cut off my feet. My feet are part of a set, Uncle Dan. I need the two of them. Please don't cut them off. And then he lifted wee Tom out. And wee Tom said, Uncle Dan, that's the best birthday that anybody could ever have, ever have. Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And now, just listen. Thunder. I love thunder. Uncle Dan said, the sky is pale blue. There's no clouds in the sky. There's no thunder. It's February the 14th. It is cold. It is Scotland, and there is no thunder when there is no clouds. I can hear the thunder. And then Uncle Dan said, look below. And he looked at his thumb. Whoa, whoa. What was making the thunder noise was wee Tom's belly was rumbling because he hadn't had breakfast. He hadn't had a snack. He hadn't had lunch. And it was now after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You need something to eat. That's what you need. Yeah, I think so. So Uncle Dan said, well, why don't we get a quick snack and I'll give you £20 and we'll go to the pet shop. Archie, the postman, gave me £20 for your birthday. And in the pet shop, we're going to buy some ladders that you would use for hamsters. And you know this, boys and girls and big people and big hairy people and big very hairy people, when they went to the pet shop, wee Tom got lost in the hamster's cage. But I'm not telling you about that today, for that's another story for another time. Let me get you a picture. Let me get you a wee picture of wee Tom.
Hey, Michael,
I'm here.
pronounce your last name for me, please. Guess we'll wait a wee bit while he gets wee Tom.
Kerrins, Kerins. If there's a letter there, we say it.
Karen. Did I say it correctly?
I don't know. I wasn't
Karen.
Kerrins.
Kerrins. I just want to make
Kerrins.
sure it's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the book that the Prime Minister's story is in.
I have that. I have an autographed copy.
I've got 8 copies of this, believe it or not. Well, I don't have them. I've given them out to people. And this is the wee Tom who rates me birthday. That's wee Tom. And that's the horse.
All right.
And that's wee Tom pestering Uncle Dan about cowboys and stuff. That's the postman. That's the fish tank. That's wee Tom coming down the stairs. I was going to miss that out in the oral version, but then I thought, no, it's such a good image.
I'm not sure how much time we have left because I don't know whether or not this will turn off automatically.
I don't know,
So
but I want to just take a wee photograph of you all. Thank you for coming.
And I want to thank you for telling stories, marvelous stories, especially birthday stories. Now for an unabashed, unashamed plug, I will be the featured storyteller Friday week from now. And I will be telling stories as part of my giving back to the community and celebrating my 72nd birthday, which is August 4th. But I'll be telling you stories on August 2nd.
Well, how are you going to be on August the 4th?
72.
Well, on August the 8th, I'll be 72.
All right, Leo to Leo. All right. All right.
And you're also, I'm also 72, so we're all 3 of us are dragons. Year of the
All right.
Dragon.
You missed
Yes.
my dragon story, Christian.
Pardon?
You missed my dragon story. Oh, there's wee Tom. It's
No,
my
no, I saw the dragon
Yeah.
story. I did say the dragon. I've just been off camera. I'm just tired. I didn't want to be on camera, so.
So
Just
for all the
hold up the
Leos
book
out
again.
there, happy birthday ahead of time.
Justina, hold up the
Michael
book again.
Kerrins, go ahead.
Two Leo dragons, that's
Again.
fierce.
Great. Cool.
All right. I think I had one last riddle for you. I'm not sure, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But listen, once again, to everybody listening in, let's have another round of applause, for Michael Kerrins. See, that's a round of applause.
Can't hear a word of it. No cheering. I'll never be able to afford I want a balcony to go out and wave at people like this.
Yeah, we do that too. And it's been a joy to listen. I'm sad that we have to go, but it's been a joy. Everyone who tuned in, both on WhatsApp and Facebook and the other social medias, thank you very, very much. And I wish everyone a continued fantastic Friday and a wonderful weekend.
So when are you on, Babasi? When are you on? What date?
I'm on next Friday.
Yeah, I'm going to write
I'm the
that.
next storyteller. I'm on Friday, August the 2nd.
Same time? Same hour?
Same time, same station. All right. So from wait a minute. I got ready to give out the time, but it would be giving out time on the American side. I think for UK it's 6 p.m. Right, 6 p.m. That's 1 p.m. my time, but 6 p.m. So for my fellow Americans, it'll be 1 p.m. But for UK and most of the other world, most of the rest of the world, it'll be 6 p.m. UK time.
Yeah. What time is that in Russia? 10?
You have to unmute.
Yeah.
Yes, it's 10.
10. So,
PM.
yeah. Well,
11 a.m. Mexico.
11 a.m. Whoa, that's even earlier than okay. Well, thank you for tuning in. I mean, yay.
Yeah.
Gracias. So on behalf of the World Storytelling Cafe, I bid everybody a do or a don't or a will, but on bump bump.
Or I
And
won't.
go ahead, Mike. Michael, you get the last word.
Just to say thank you very much to all my friends who came. There's some folk who are on different media, but to my beloved niece, Christina, thank you very much. To my dear friend, Florine from my trilingual group. I'm seeing you tomorrow at 7 in the morning. To Sol, I haven't seen you since Cuba. To Richard, I haven't seen you since last week. Natalia, I miss you. Oleg, I miss you. Aristova, you just make me cry when I just see you. Peter, it was lovely to see you and meet you on the cruise. Christian, knock him dead on the 15th, darling.
And special thanks to Waleed for flying the magic carpet ride again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I'm Baba C on behalf of the World Storytelling Cafe.com. I wish everybody a continued joyous life. See you next Friday.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Until the next time.
Bye-bye till the next time.
See out. Those were great stories. Thank you, Waleed.